So, we want to benefit all sentient beings. Sounds totally impractical, doesn't it? Yeah? What? Me? Benefit all sentient beings? No, they should benefit me. Yeah. Isn't that the way we think? Yeah? All sentient beings should benefit me. You may want to move up in here because I suspect people will be coming through the doorway. And I promise I won't bite if you move up closely.
You could go over there.
Yeah. So we think about benefiting others, and it's wonderful to know that we can. And yet we have a lot of interferences to being able to benefit others. Yeah. First of all, like I said, we think they should benefit us first. Don't you think so? Hello? Yeah? What is in your heart? Do you wake up each morning thinking, I want to spread love and joy and benefit all sentient beings? Or do you wake up each morning and think, oh, who do I have to deal with today? Who's going to criticize me? Who's going to not appreciate me? Which one do you wake up thinking? Or do you just wake up and like slam the alarm clock and roll over? Okay? So we may have this aspiration to be a benefit, but there's this thing called the self-centered attitude that gets in the way. Yeah? Because the first one we usually think about is ourselves, isn't it? Yeah? Don't we? I gotta make me happy. There it is. And we wonder why we're not happy. And we think the reason we're not happy is because other people, well, you know, they just don't get it. You know? Yeah, other people lie to me, they cheat me, they don't appreciate me, they don't love me. I work so hard and do so much, and nobody says thank you. Yeah? Anybody here feel that way? Yeah? Oh, only 7 or 8 of us feel that way? Yeah? So we have a lot of complaints about the world. And we think our complaints about the world are true. And that the world should really shape up and, you know, start meeting our needs and start behaving the way we think the world should behave. So we have lots of advice for everybody. Don't we? How they could improve? Yeah, some advice for your family. Yeah, if you have a partner, lots of advice for your partner. Even for your pet dog or pet cat, some advice. And who do we really have advice for? You guys don't read the newspaper? Yeah? what is our favorite object of, contempt and advice?
President Trump.
Yeah, it's our prayers and our Congress. Don't you think? I mean, do you have some advice for those people? I have a lot of advice for them. Yeah? Any of you go to the March for Our Lives? Yeah? A few of you, good. Yeah, we have some advice for the NRA. Yeah? Do you have some, or maybe your advice is you want them to make bigger and better guns for you to buy, but I'm making an assumption here. Okay? But we have lots of advice for lots of people, and they don't seem to follow our advice. And then we feel frustrated, we feel despair, we feel depressed and hopeless, and we just kind of go, well, what to do? And then we go drink and drug, or go shopping or gambling, or exercise our thumbs to avoid the whole thing. Yeah? It's painful, isn't it? Yeah, it's painful. And we come to Buddhism and we hear about having compassion for all sentient beings and wanting to attain Buddhahood to benefit all sentient beings. And we say, yes, compassion is wonderful. I want to have compassion for all sentient beings, except this one and that one. And having compassion for Trump, are you kidding? Who is it harder to have compassion for? Trump? Paul Ryan? Mitch McConnell? Maybe this new guy Bolton? Yeah? Maybe Pruitt? Yeah? These people really challenge our compassion, don't they? Yeah? Not to mention the people who bullied us in first grade, the people who abused us, the people who, directly harmed us, and so on. Yeah? So we like the idea of compassion, but compassion can be very hard. Yeah? Yeah, we want to hit something. Okay? So, there's a lot to work on, really, to have an open-hearted life, a life that's filled with compassion, and to really understand what compassion means. So I can't say I have a perfect understanding of it, but I can share some things with you that I've learned, basically by trial and error. Okay? So when I first met the Dharma, it's like, compassion, that's wonderful. That means I will do everything that pleases other living beings. And as a result of my compassion and pleasing other living beings, they will all appreciate and love me. Wrong. Okay? Wrong on a lot of levels. First of all, compassion doesn't mean that we do whatever other people want. Because we have to remember other people are under the influence of ignorance, anger, and attachment. And some of what they want is harmful, is damaging, you know? Trump wants to do this military parade, spend millions of dollars to air freight tanks to Washington. Yeah? Do we want him to have what he wants? Is that beneficial for the country? Yeah? If we have a relative who tells us they need money, but we know they use it for drugs, is it compassionate to give them money? Okay. When people have racist views and we want to make everybody happy, is it compassionate to agree with them and support those views? What does it really mean to be compassionate? You know, does it mean being, okay, there's Goody Two-Shoes. Yeah, do you remember Goody Two-Shoes? Yeah, she's related to Susie Cream Cheese. Okay, and they're all related to Peter Pan as well. Okay, so does being compassionate mean we become a people pleaser? That we're always frantically running around, completely anxious that we're not meeting the needs of everybody. So we do this and we do that, and we do the other thing. We help this person, we help that person. We run around here and do that. We volunteer here at this organization and volunteer there at that organization, and we do this and this whole thing and please our whole family and please the whole country and everybody in our workplace. We're all running around and we clean the counter after everybody else. And yeah, we're doing it right, aren't we? Aren't we? Is that compassion? You know? That we're so anxious about people pleasing. Yeah? That we drive everybody around us crazy. Oh, don't do that. Let me do it for you. Okay? So people pleasing and compassion are different. Because people pleasing has the underlying motivation of, I need people's appreciation. I need love. I need to be needed. And this is my way of fulfilling my needs. So the motivation isn't really other people's benefit. It's coming back to what I need. So, yeah, you understand? Yeah, so something's wrong there, you know. And then also, when we have that kind of motivation of wanting something in return for our compassion, then when other people don't give it, we feel really disillusioned. And sometimes other people, can you imagine, we're trying to help them, and they tell us to go away and mind our own business. Oh, horrible. And then we say, nobody appreciates me. I'm trying to save the world, and the world doesn't want to be saved. Yeah. Okay, so we have to be careful. Compassion isn't doing what everybody else wants. It's not making everybody else happy. It's working for their benefit. And sometimes we don't really know what benefits other people. Yeah? We think we know. And we have to act, we do our best, but sometimes we miss the target. Yeah, because we don't have the power to know other people's karma, to know, their inside tendencies and inclinations and so on. And then sometimes, we want to be compassionate, but, I'm just tired. I want to stay at home tonight. Read comic books. What program do you watch on TV? I don't watch TV. What does everybody watch?
Netflix.
Yeah, so something on Netflix. Yeah, compassion can wait until tomorrow. Okay? So it's I'm not trying to discourage you from being compassionate. I want to encourage you to be compassionate. But to have an element of realism about our compassion. Okay? And I've discovered that sometimes being compassionate involves saying or doing something that makes the other person very upset with me. Yeah. Because especially, like I'm working with Dharma practitioners. If you sign up to be a monk or a nun and join a monastery, you're signing up for people to point out your faults. Because that's how we improve. Yeah. And so I'm one of the people who point out people's faults. Isn't that great? I get to point out their faults. Yeah? Which, believe me, don't sign up for that job. Yeah? But, sometimes in the course of helping people, you have to point things out to them that they don't really want to hear. Or in the course of just helping people in regular old society, you have to do things that aren't going to necessarily make them happy. Okay? For example, one man came to see me once, and he told me that when he was a teenager, he got in a lot of trouble with the law. As teenage guys sometimes do. And he was just acting out, and he'd get busted and then go to court, and his mother would go there and bail him out, bring him home. And then he'd do some other stupid thing a few weeks later and go to court, and his mother would come and, plead with the judge to release him. And this went on for a while. And Mom was always saving him. Yeah, and bringing him home. And then one time, he was sitting there in court, and Mom said to the judge, he's out of control, and I can't handle him anymore. You keep him. And he told me he was shocked. It's like, how can my mom's abandoning me? She's not helping me. I got in trouble. Her job is to come and save me. And she's telling me to stay. I don't know if he was still in juvenile court or if he was, late teens and already in adult court. But he was not a happy camper and was quite upset with his mom. But, he told me, it made him put his feet on the floor and realize that he was responsible for his situation. It was not his mom's responsibility to keep saving him, that he did the actions that brought that result, and if he didn't like the result, he had to act differently. And so he did. Okay. And I thought, his mom was really brave. Can you imagine being a mom and letting your kid stay in the can? In jail? That's hard. But she really did the right thing, even though he was mad at her. Because that's what he needed to wake up and take responsibility for his life. Yeah. My teacher in training me, I was talking with Venerable Rabina this morning. Some of you were probably here for her teachings. We're old-time friends. And we were sharing that for both of us, our teacher's way of training us was throw her in the deep end and let her figure it out. And that's what happened. We had different situations. But sometimes, being in really difficult situations and trying to figure out how to handle them with our minds going crazy with afflictions, and then eventually, sorting things out and finding our way through to some clarity. But at the time that we're in the difficult situation with our mind totally confused, we were thinking, why is our teacher doing this to me? But he was doing it to help us. Okay? So sometimes, not all the time, sometimes, to benefit somebody, we have to do something that makes them somewhat uncomfortable. Other times, out of compassion to benefit them, we have to step in and give advice. Other times, we have to keep our mouth closed and let them figure it out. The ways of benefiting others are so broad. And to develop a sensitivity about what to do to benefit a specific individual it takes a lot of sensitivity, a lot of self-awareness, because I think the better we understand our own self and the way our own mind works, the better we can understand other people, but also to see how other people are like us, but also sometimes to see how they think in an entirely different way than we do. And then to give them that space. Okay? So it's to know exactly how to act with compassion is not easy. What we need to cultivate first is that compassionate attitude, okay, that at least wants to help. An attitude that can look at other living beings and see that the deepest thing in their heart is they want to be happy and they don't want to suffer. And in that way, they are exactly like us. They're no different. And so to really cultivate compassion, one of the first things we have to do is level the playing field in our mind. Because usually we have compassion for the people that we like, who agree with us, who praise us, who vote like us. We have compassion for those people. But people who are different from us, or even species that are different than us, animals, insects, do you have compassion for the cockroaches in your house? No, I don't have any cockroaches because I spray the place. That's how much compassion I have for cockroaches. But to really look at living beings as beings who have feelings, who want to be happy, who don't want to suffer, and who are under the influence of ignorance, anger, and attachment, such that in their confusion, they don't know how to create the causes for happiness, and instead they create the causes for suffering. And the humbling part of it is, we do too. Because sometimes there's this thing with compassion where we place ourselves above others. Yeah? Those poor slobs. Yeah? Uneducated, backward people who can't think straight. Yeah? And they're like this with all their wrong ideas. Yeah. So I don't have compassion for them. Yeah, I have compassion, like I said before, people who agree with my ideas, the people who encourage me when I feel down, who praise me, who talk well about me to others, who make me happy, who give me presents. I have lots of compassion for those people. Yeah, when they face difficulties. But when the people who interfere with my happiness, who tell me I'm a jerk when they're the ones who are jerks, they aren't worthy of my compassion. Yeah? Or, like I said before, I have pity for them. Yeah, these poor people. Their minds are so, they don't have a precious human life. I have a precious human life. Because a precious human life isn't just any human life. It's one that has all the conducive circumstances to practice the Dharma. And most people on this planet don't have that opportunity. But I do. Yeah. Yeah, there's the 8 freedoms, the 10 fortunes. I have all 10 of them. It comes from all 18. It comes from all the good karma I created in my past life. So I have a precious human life with the opportunity of making great progress on the path and becoming a Buddha and having gobs of compassion for all people, especially those people who cannot get their lives together. And then we pick on our favorite group of people. Okay? So you might be the person who says, what is it? A few years ago, it was the, what did they call that? Welfare queens, right? Yeah? So we have so much compassion for all these people on welfare. Yeah? Or we have so much compassion for, whatever group, all the recovering Southern Baptists. Yeah? I've met people who told me, I'm a recovering Southern Baptist. So we have so much compassion for those people because they're, like that. Huh? Shantideva gives a very good example, really showing what compassion is and how different compassion is from pity. Okay? Because pitying people, those poor slobs who can't get their lives together, who I am going to save because I'm so full of compassion. Yeah? Are those thoughts lurking in your mind somewhere? Yeah, I'm exaggerating them, but check up. Huh? So Shantideva said, when our foot steps on a thorn. Yeah? Or nowadays it's a rusty nail or a piece of glass. And the foot is injured. Yeah? The hand reaches down and pulls it out, cleans it up, bandages it, and life goes on. That's it. Okay? The hand doesn't say, I am the great and glorious hand. And you, stupid foot, yet again, stepped on another rusty nail, piece of glass, thorn. How many times have I told you to look where you're going? I've told you many times, and you don't look where you're going. And you injured yourself, you idiot. But I, the great and glorious hand, am so full of compassion. I'm going to come down and pull the rusty nail out and give you a tetanus shot and bandage it up. And don't you forget that I helped you, because you owe me something now. Okay? Yeah, that's sometimes the example of helping others. Yeah? Is that helping others? Is that compassion? No, not at all, is it? Yeah? Why does the hand with the foot just automatically help the foot and life goes on and there's no big drama? Yeah? What's going on that gives the hand that ability? Yeah? Because the hand and the foot are part of the same organism. They're different, but they're part of the same body, and they depend on each other, and they realize that they depend on each other. So they help each other. Yeah, as human beings, as living beings, we are part of the same organism of all sentient life. If we see ourselves that way, as part of all of sentient life, then helping another sentient being is not a big deal. It's like the hand pulling the thorn out of the foot. When we think of ourselves as separate individuals, yeah? And this is a problem with American culture and Western culture in general, is we are separate individuals trying to be our own stars. And then we don't feel like we're embedded in this interdependent network. And so that's what brings the pity and the condescension and the drama. Whereas when we really feel, we're all part of the same thing, then helping someone else is like helping ourselves. Mm-hmm. Okay, but our culture encourages us to be an individual, doesn't it? We're taught that from the time we're very little. Yeah, even in pre-K now. Yeah, who got the gold stars? Who's the best student? Who is the most, kindest to the other kids on the playground? We all want to be stars, and we're taught to be individuals. So we all conform and be individuals. Okay? And we're taught, talk big about yourself. When you go for a job interview, yeah, and the person who's interviewing you says, do you know about this? And you don't know anything about it, you still say, oh yes. Or you say, I know something and I learn quickly. But that's a giveaway that you don't know what you're saying. So you usually say, oh yes, I know that. Yeah. Who says I don't know at a job interview? Yeah. When my niece was applying for college, one of the questions was, to write about yourself. And I said, why don't you tell them about your talents and then tell them about the things you need to work on? Because I personally would respect somebody who I could see could evaluate themselves well, rather than somebody who was trying to market themselves. And I said this to my niece. My niece was horrified. My sister-in-law got mad at me. And because all the kids, you're trying to market yourself and sell yourself as a product. And it's horrible. We aren't products. We aren't something to buy, that we have to convince other people that, of our unique ability. So, I don't know. Something's wrong with our culture that we emphasize that too much. Yeah? But I think if we can see ourselves as part of the whole and think about benefiting the group and not dividing people into friends, enemies, and strangers so much. Yeah. And especially with the people that we think of as enemies, which could mean anybody that we don't like. Okay? Somebody once came to me. This was years ago, way before the last election. And somebody came and said, I have a real problem. How do I have compassion for Republicans? Yeah? They were really sincere. Huh? So how do we have compassion for people we disagree with? Yeah? Do you have compassion for Trump? Yeah? How about for Putin? Yeah? So it's, these are people that I think we need to work at. Having compassion for the people who are kind of us, that's not too difficult. But especially the people that push our buttons. Yeah. Or how about Aunt Ethel, who every time you talk to her tells you her same story of complaint about other people in the family? Do you have a relative like that? Every time you call them, they tell you the same critical story about another relative or a friend or somebody. And it's like you could repeat the story together with them. You've heard it so many times. Do you have compassion for that person? Yeah? What about, or do you feel like, I just want to hang up? Or maybe put the phone down, go and do something, because they're just talking. Yeah. Or how about somebody who's very sick in the hospital? Does it push your buttons to go in the hospital and see somebody who's very ill or somebody who's injured? Does it make you, do you shake a little bit inside, like, this could happen to me? Yeah. Or you go in the hospital for somebody who's terminal, and you find reasons not to go because it's scary to go, because it reminds us of our own mortality. So we all have these kinds of areas, yeah, where we protect ourselves from what feels uncomfortable. Yeah. So we use our book of 1,008 excuses. Yeah. That's the reminder for 1,009th excuse. Okay. So to really, look at what our sensitive points are, and why do these things push my buttons? What's going on in me that frightens me about this? And learning to see where we're holding something, where our attachment is, where our self-centered mind throws up the protective wall or the aggressive dog to go chase somebody. Yeah. So it's very interesting to explore this and see those things in ourselves. And the nice thing about seeing those things, as uncomfortable as it is that once we can acknowledge it, just the first step of acknowledging something already loosens its hold on us. Yeah, just acknowledging that we have a button, that we are sensitive, that sends us ballistic. Just acknowledging that already is really big progress, because we can't heal those parts of ourselves. We can't disperse those afflictions or melt those walls without recognizing them. Yeah, it's like if you want to clean a room, you have to see the dirt. If you can't see the dirt, how are you going to clean the room? Okay? So there's nothing wrong with seeing the dirt. Don't see your own dirt and go, I'm the only one who has dirt. Everybody here is pure. I'm the only one. I'm such a horrible practitioner. I wanted to be a great Buddhist, and look at me, I'm a disaster. Yeah, don't get into that drama. That's, that self-loathing, self-criticism is just more self-centeredness. Yeah, guilt is just self-centeredness reincarnate. Because who's the star of the show when you feel guilty? I'm so terrible, I'm so bad. No wonder nobody loves me. I messed everything up. The marriage broke up and it was all my fault. My kids turned out so weird, it's all my fault. I messed everything up. I am so powerful I can make everything go wrong. Yeah, just a little self-centered, huh? Yeah. So to see that kind of stuff and learn to laugh at it. I mean, when we practice Dharma, we have to have a sense of humor. Yeah, it's absolutely necessary to have a sense of humor. Because if you take yourself too seriously, when you start discovering all these faults in the self-centered mind and the self-grasping ignorance and all 84,000 afflictions that we've got to free ourselves from, if we take ourselves too seriously, then we can't move. Yes, we have to be able to laugh at our own foolishness and be transparent and be willing to just acknowledge stuff and laugh at it. Okay? So, for example, well, there's two stories here. one of them was when I was in retreat many years ago, and sitting at my puja table, and with my altar and my mala, saying lots of mantra, accumulating lots of mantra, and doing the visualization, and the light's coming, and then I'm radiating light. Then I thought, my teacher, I'm sure he's clairvoyant, and he sees what a good practitioner I am doing retreat. As soon as that thought came in my mind, I cracked up laughing, and I said, that shows how I'm not such a good practitioner. And that's what he's seeing right now. Is not how great I am, but how corrupt I am. And I had to laugh, because what my afflicted mind was doing was hysterical. It was so silly, that you just have to laugh. So, at our monastery, we live together, and, you people think, oh, all the monastics, they look alike, same clothes, same hairdo, same cookie cutter. No. When you live in a monastery, you live with people that if you were in ordinary life, you would not speak to. You have the same faith and aspiration, but their personalities drive you buggy. Okay, totally buggy. And, and then we, of course, never think that we drive other people buggy. We don't do that because we're nice, kind, tolerant, patient people who clean up after all these other slobs in the monastery. And let me tell you, some people come to the, because we have all sorts of lay people come, There's a lot of people who do not know how to make a bed. I'm serious. A lot of young people come, they've never made their bed before. We have to teach people how to sweep a floor. I'm not lying. They've never swept a floor before. Okay? So, these people haven't ordained yet. By the time someone ordains, they've mastered sweeping the floor and making their bed. But seriously, people come, they've never done that. They don't know how to vacuum. They don't know how to do dishes. It's amazing, Anyway, when you live together with people, you try and hide all your stuff that isn't so becoming. And instead, of course, other people's faults are so visible. And out of compassion, we have to point their faults out to them, so that they can improve. But then we discover something very shocking, which is they see our faults. And we've been trying to cover them up so well, that every time somebody comments on a fault, we have a whole explanation for why we act that way. It's called being defensive. But we don't see it as being defensive. We are educating them about why we do stupid things, basically. But it gets kind of alarming, like, oh, everybody here sees my faults. And I'm trying to, be such a good practitioner, or just be a good person, and they're not supposed to see my faults, but they do. And then you have to get used to being okay with everybody knowing our faults. And this isn't just in a monastery. In your family, do people know your faults? Do you know their faults? Yeah? Whenever you get to know somebody, yeah, these things are evident. But we have such a hard time being transparent and admitting that to other people. But if we can acknowledge our faults and admit them, first of all, it takes the steam out of any criticism. And second of all, we have much more self-acceptance. Yeah, we feel more comfortable with ourselves. We don't feel comfortable with our faults, but we feel like, okay, this is where I'm at this time, and I might as well accept it rather than trying to be Mr. or Ms. Perfect. Okay? Do you have things in your life that you wish you could do but you can't? Or you haven't learned to do? Or you did and you blew it? Yeah? One of my big things, one of them, was I never learned Tibetan. Can you imagine that? I never learned Tibetan. And it's a hindrance. And my friends speak Tibetan. You know, I look up the ordination, because we sit in ordination line, or order. Up all my friends, who are senior, they know Tibetan. Even the ones who are junior know Tibetan. I never learned Tibetan. I could spend a half an hour telling you all the hindrances I had and why I never learned. Yeah, so that you'll feel sorry for me. But it was a big thing for me to really make peace with that. Yeah, to really make peace. Because my teachers, I think, would have liked if I knew Tibetan and could talk to them directly. That never happened. Yeah. But to just make peace with that and accept myself for what I was, at least this lifetime. Yeah, with the consolation prize that the Buddha didn't speak Tibetan either. Yeah. Yeah. So that, just being comfortable with that. Knowing at the monastery that, people see when I'm irritated. Yeah. And people see when I eat too much. Yeah. And people, they know my faults. And I have to be okay with that. And just that in itself is a practice that I think is a step towards being compassionate towards other people. Because when we can accept ourselves and acknowledge our own faults or weaknesses or whatever, without hating ourselves for them, without criticizing ourselves and beating ourselves up and telling ourselves what failures and how awful we are, but just simply accepting it, then the more that opens the door for us to look at other people and shed that critical mind. Okay? And just see, so-and-so has a problem with this. This thing is a real button pusher for so-and-so. Yeah. And to see that, but without criticizing the other person, without throwing them into the enemy camp and thinking of how we can retaliate. Yeah. But really being able to open our hearts in compassion to that other person. Yeah. And so I think that comes, the more we can accept ourselves, the more we can accept other people. Okay? So, I look at Donnie. Yeah, that's what I call him. I look at Donnie. And Donnie is not a happy person. Yeah? He's powerful, he's rich, he's famous, and he's very unhappy. Yeah, how do I know he's unhappy? Somebody who watches TV a great deal to see what other people say about him is very attached to their reputation. Somebody who tweets angry things to other people, who wakes up in the morning and the first thing they do is send angry tweets, is not a happy person. Yeah? Somebody who, blames others and makes generalized racist statements is not a happy person. Why should I hate somebody who is unhappy? Yeah? What use does my hating unhappy people do? Okay. So I'm using Donnie as an example. It could be somebody personal in our lives who mistreated us or abused us or betrayed our trust or who knows what. Yeah, but they do that not because they really want to cause harm, but because they're unhappy. Yeah. So in the same way that we can look and see our own faults and accept them, can we look at other people's faults and say, they're just trying to be happy and not suffer. And yet, this is what they're doing, trying to be happy. And it's a sure sign that they're actually creating the cause of suffering. And their behavior is not making them happy. Yeah. So I venture to say that I think Donnie is one of the most unhappy people. When I think about, what would it be like to be him, to have that personality? Whoa. Painful. So, when we can understand the people that we usually would throw in the enemy category and understand their suffering, then there's a chance for compassion to arise. Yeah? And compassion just means, may they be free of suffering. So, like I was saying, when we wish somebody to be free of suffering, it doesn't necessarily mean that we wish them to have everything they think they need. He thinks he needs high poll ratings. He thinks he needs the highest attendance at his inauguration. He thinks he needs, lots of people cheering and saying Trump, Trump, Trump. He doesn't need those things. When I have compassion for him, I don't wish him that stuff, because that stuff is totally meaningless. Yeah? I wish him to be free of that hunger for external affirmation that he's never going to have. Because external affirmation doesn't cure the emptiness and loneliness and dissatisfaction in our own heart. What I pray for him is that may he be free of the ignorance, anger, and attachment that causes that incredible emotional neediness. Yeah? So that he doesn't have that And then he can look at people with kindness. That's what I pray for him. So, it's relating to what I said at the beginning. We don't necessarily want, out of compassion, give people what they think they want. What sometimes is better is to think more broadly about what really would bring them happiness. Mm-hmm. So one of the things that made me very happy was, I think it was maybe it was before the last inauguration. His Holiness, the Dalai Lama, spoke to Congress just for 5 minutes. And, what's that guy's name? The Senator Cruz from Texas? That guy, he heard the Dalai Lama. Wow. Some seed was planted in his mind. Paul Ryan heard the Dalai Lama. Yeah? So thinking, okay, small seeds planted in people's minds, may they ripen in their future lifetimes so that they can follow the Dharma path. So that's one of the things I do, and I'm saying this, I'm talking about politics specifically, because we get a lot of requests at the Abbey from people writing us and saying, help! Yeah, we're so discouraged by what's happening in the world. Help! But one of the things I do is, Buddhists, we do a lot of prostrations. When I do bowing, I have the whole administration around me bowing. We're all bowing together. Because, part of the instruction is you imagine all sentient beings around you. Yeah? So it's not just some blob of ambiguous sentient beings. Yeah? It's these people who I really disagree with. Yeah? Kind of Donnie on one side and Wayne LaPierre on the others. And, we're all bowing to the Buddha together. Yeah, can you imagine that?
Have to try.
But I find that helps me to have tolerance and compassion for people. Yeah, to see that they have the Buddha nature, they have the possibility of becoming Buddhas. And so I imagine them joining in the practice. Yeah. And that's a big help to my mind. It sure beats what I hear some other people say about them, yeah? Okay. So, anyway, that was a little bit about living an open-hearted life. We kind of roamed around a lot of different topics, but I think there was some core there that maybe came through. What I'd like to do is open it to questions, and maybe answers. Answers are not guaranteed, and comments that you may have.
And we'll do the mic just for the live stream.
Please ask your questions now, because many people, they come up after the teaching to ask their question. Then the line goes out the door. Yeah, so ask your questions now. Yeah.
So I was thinking about when you were talking about how we have these lists of friends, lists of enemies, lists of neutral folks, and that we should work to cultivate a mind of equanimity, that our culture as a whole has, groups that we consider worthy of our compassion, groups that we consider unworthy of our compassion, groups that are neutral, and so on. And then when you talked about Donnie, I thought about how, at least for one segment of our society, he's definitely in the group that does not deserve compassion. He has all the power, he has all the authority, he has, everything that he would want, and it's just not, culturally speaking, considered appropriate to have compassion for him. And that our culture is just very sick like that.
Yeah, that's a problem with our culture. Yeah, is we are taught to have anger at people that we don't like. And we're taught to have anger. Our anger is justified. Yeah, we should be angry. We should never forgive them for what they do. And what's the effect of that on our mind of holding hatred for somebody else or holding a grudge against somebody who harmed us? When we hate somebody, when we hold a grudge, who suffers? Us. We're the victim of our own anger and hatred. Donnie's eating cheeseburgers. He's okay, he's not suffering if we disagree with him. Wayne LaPierre is having steak at the Trump Hotel. They're not suffering due to our holding a grudge. When we hold a grudge, we suffer. Yeah. So this is something that I think we have it very wrong in our culture. Very wrong. This thing of holding grudges. Yeah. The Parkland thing. So I think these kids are great. But of course, I was a Vietnam War protester. And we stopped the war. And I think these kids can do it for gun control. But I watched one time, some journalist was interviewing a group of a few of them and said, do you think that Nicholas Cruz should have the death penalty? And most of the kids who were there said yes. One person said, yeah, I think he should suffer. One person said his death wouldn't mean wouldn't bring back the other people. But most of the kids said yes, immediately, without thinking. And I thought, wow, this shows our American conditioning, that we are taught to hate and not forgive. And right before I left to come here, I made a little video and talking about this. And we're sending it, hoping that they see it as part of their fan mail and it might make them think. But yeah, it doesn't do any good. No good at all. Yeah. But then what we get confused about is, well, if I don't hate the person, then that must mean what they did was okay. If I forgive them, it means that what they did was okay. No, that doesn't mean what they did was okay. We can forgive somebody and say very clear, what they did is not okay. The action was harmful. The action needs to be stopped. But that person has the potential to become a Buddha. So we separate out the action from the person. Yeah? So forgiving somebody simply means that we're letting go of our anger. Our forgiveness doesn't do anything for anybody else. Yeah. Similarly, when we messed up, we think we need other people. Whoop. Yeah. When we mess up, can you hear me? We think we need other people to forgive us. We don't need them to forgive us. We need to forgive ourselves. We can't make anybody else forgive us. Yeah? And nobody else can make us forgive them. But when we see the disadvantages of grudge holding and vengeance, we want to forgive because we want to set our anger down, because our anger is poisoning our life. And we can still say that action is wrong. Okay? So forgiving doesn't mean what the other person did was right. And forgetting what they did, the meaning of forgiving, we hear forgive and forget. Sometimes forgetting is not so smart. Yeah, when you look at the Holocaust or genocide or other things, do we forget those? No, we need to remember them. But we forgive the people who did them while remembering the actions so that we can be sure as a society we don't repeat it. Okay? Yeah. Here, he has the mic.
Maybe I shouldn't be saying this, but
Go ahead.
I was a teacher and I worked in the New York City school system for a few years, and it's really gotten worse since then. I mean, I was able to do that then, and I look at it now. But as soon as this happened, and I've been through every massacre and looked at everything, and even the one in Newton, Connecticut, which I thought was a really sweet town. You know, I just thought of the mother, you know, because she had brought him up with guns. But in this case, I immediately thought that they put him out there alone. His parents had passed. He was with adoptive parents who weren't really very functioning. Mm-hmm. And instead of following him up, they could get rid of him, take him out of the school. There were 3,000 students there, but there should be something in our system that makes them follow up each of those people they take out, because he's just wandering around in this turmoil he's got, and nobody's with him. So I was wondering, but that's just a solution that I thought of. I mean, I don't want to think that about execution or no execution.
Yeah, no, prevention is definitely better.
I'm not the one to write that kind of article, and I was just wondering if there were any psychologists, psychiatrists, teachers who have showed this, that he was just put out there all alone.
Yeah. No, there's a lot of discussion about that in the press. Mm-hmm. Yeah, that he fell through the cracks in the system, that there were lots of warnings, but the police didn't follow up on the warnings, the social workers didn't follow up. Yeah. This kid was not taken care of. And look what happened. Yeah.
I don't know if it...
Where are you?
I'm right here.
Okay.
So, I am part of the younger generation, you could say, that has chance to, you know, kind of like, stop. Sorry, I'm nervous talking. That can kind of go against the NRA. And what she had specifically said is something that stuck out to me, because I have always believed that school systems especially have lacked in mental health. And I know. And the thing is, though, they're part of their 1009 excuses, you could say, is how it's too sensitive of a topic, and therefore they should disregard it completely. Mm. And sometimes I don't blame the school for that, because it can be very triggering for people. Mm-hmm. But there are instances where, with the shooter in Parkland, that, you know, everything she was saying was completely true. And I feel as though sometimes, like, the school does need to reevaluate and recheck, because they don't know the potential. They don't know how badly students here are suffering. Mm-hmm. And it's almost as if we have a trapped voice. You know, so we can't say it because they tell us not to. And what you had said...
You mean if the students tell, like the principal, or tell the school psychologist, they tell you not to say that about a student who you can see has mental problems?
Yes. I mean, they'll take it into consideration, mm-hmm. but most of the schools don't even have school psychologists. Mm-hmm. And if they do, they're very under the radar, you could say.
Mm-hmm.
And so one of the things you had said was how we are growing up to rules and, you know, what the culture and society is telling us.
Mm-hmm.
You know, as part of the younger generation, I kind of want to know how we can go against that, you know, because I see very much in my day and how I have even become a part of the society that wants to be at the top. You know, it's a very competitive. I know that natural selection is within our blood, and how we feel as if, you know, the weakest just die off. And it's kind of something that I think we should open up to more schools and more people of how you should break away from this.
Mm.
And, you know, not have to necessarily follow their standards.
Definitely. And I think one of the nice things about when you become as an adult is there's the possibility to reevaluate what you've been taught and to figure out, you know, because when we're kids, people teach us all sorts of things and we can't think clearly about, is this correct or not? But when you get to that age, then you can think, oh, I learned this and that from my family, from society. Is that true? Is that the way I want to live? And then you can say, to some of it, yes, and some of it, no. You know, I think the way the society is conditioning us is incorrect. And then you stand up and talk about it. And there's a number of people who are doing this now. I mean, what you talked about, natural selection, you know, and thinking, okay, the powerful people rise to the top and the other people fall to the bottom. You know what His Holiness, the Dalai Lama, talks about? Instead of survival of the fittest, survival of the most cooperative. Yeah, and really, it's true. If you look at it, and what he points to is the ants and the bees, and how they all cooperate for the good of the whole anthill or beehive. They don't compete with each other. They cooperate. Yeah? And so, you know, if we human beings cooperated, we would survive much better than if we believed in this survival of the fittest. Yeah? So, you know, why don't we question that? Why do we, you know, we're taught survival of the fittest. We just believe it. Is that true? Is that true? The competition makes everything better. I personally think it's a bunch of baloney. Yeah? And I'm very much for this, you know, let's go. Because, see, this is this whole thing about if we're individuals, then it's survival of me. But if the whole society can't survive, being the top dead one in a dead society doesn't do you much good. Yeah? If we could cooperate, then we all survive and we all thrive. Okay? So I think, you know, you people who are young, there's a lot of people talking about different ideas now. And His Holiness has a group of people at Emory University who are working on an educational program to teach compassion in the schools.
Secular ethics program, right?
Yeah, but actually an active compassion program, too. Yeah, and so to get involved with that kind of stuff and talk about it and bring it out and, you know, as, what do they say? Be the change that you want to see.
On a totally different topic, I'm just curious to know a little bit more about your experience trying to learn Tibetan, what challenges you came into, and ultimately why you didn't learn the language.
Oh, you want to hear my half an hour rationalization? Basically, because I was amongst the first people who kind of met Tibetan Buddhism. Nobody knew how to teach Tibetan language, so it was difficult to find a teacher. When I had a teacher, then I didn't have a visa. When I had a teacher and a visa, then I got sick. Living in India. So there was always things coming up, and I tried. Yeah, but I can't hear the difference, Tibetan alphabet. Ka, ka, ka. Chikpare. It sounds, the letters sound the same way. Yeah, ka, 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 ga. And then I went to Tibet, and, okay, Lhasa speaks this way, then I cross the valley into Pempo, totally different accent. Then you go here, and then somebody in Kham, they pronounce their guz like juz, and so you see, it's all the fault of the Tibetan language that I don't learn. But then I think of people learning English, and, we can hear cha and ja. But I can now understand why people can't hear the difference between cha and ja. And why people can't say the and that. Yeah? And the difference between pa and ba. Yeah? When you know the language, those things, they're so obvious. When you don't, it all sounds the same. So, yeah.
I'm more interested to hear, how did you let go of that desire to learn?
Yeah.
How did you finally let
Okay. Well, I still have the desire to learn, but I just had to deal with the reality of the situation that, if I had been able to learn when in my 20s and 30s, it was good. But by the time I got older, there were other more important things that I felt I needed to do rather than learn Tibetan. So I did those other things. And what's interesting, too, is I did find one benefit of not learning Tibetan, which is it made me really think deeply about the meaning of the Dharma, because I couldn't just rely on jargon. Sometimes if you know the language, then you rely on jargon. I couldn't do that. So it really made me think more about the meaning. So that was one good thing that I console myself with when I feel like a dum-dum. Yeah? But you just, okay, my life's work this time isn't, because you see, at the beginning, the image I had, the model I had, was you learn debate, and you learn all those studies, and, you become like Jay Rinpoche. You become an expert scholar and debater and an expert meditator. And I wanted to be like Jay Rinpoche. And so I wanted to go to the monasteries in the south to study debate, and you needed to learn Tibetan to do that. But aside from the fact, even if I had learned Tibetan, they wouldn't have let me go. Why? I was a woman. I couldn't join the monasteries. Okay? So, but you know what? Looking back on it now, I think it's actually good I didn't do that. yes, I would have loved to do it, and I'm still interested, and I would love to do that. But I think I probably would have become really arrogant. Yeah, I do. I think I would have become very arrogant. And so it's probably good that I didn't do that and that I got kicked around a lot. You know, made me more humble. Hmm?
Hello. I'm curious to listen when in 1977 that you decided to become a Buddhist nun.
77.
Yeah, 1977.
Yeah.
So when you were in 20s, was that transition? I would imagine it's not something that you are. One is fully ready, fully knowing. I don't know that, like having that confidence. This is the way you want to do for the rest of your life, and versus all the things that around me that probably is not supporting that decision. How was that transition? How was that decision made, and how did you make through that?
When I began to learn the Dharma, it just went right here. And it gave me a whole different way of looking at life. And it gave me the tools to look at my own mind, to work through some of the difficulties that I had. It made sense logically. You know, it gave me some purpose and meaning. I didn't find much purpose and meaning in, you know, the standard American dream. And Buddhism really did that. So I never, you know, it was like I never made a decision. The decision made itself. It was just like, this is what I want to do. And my teacher made me wait about 2 years or a year and a half, which I didn't want to do, but it's good if you listen to your teacher. Yeah?
Just one additional question on top of that. So how do you view the difference being a full-time nun versus being a lay person still working in a society?
Okay. Do I tell you the truth or do I make it sound nice? Some of you are going to be horrified. I am so happy I don't have a husband and children. Really, I am so happy that I don't have those. If I had a husband and children, I would not be here with you tonight. Yeah? I could not be here with you. I would have to be with my family and taking care of my family. And by this time, my children would have had grandchildren. And then you have not only children, but grandchildren. You know? So, yeah. I'm happy. I realize that some people love having children, and that's great. You know, that some people love having children. But it just was not the thing for me. Yeah? And I got married before I ordained. Very nice man. Yeah? But I wanted to be a nun. Yeah? Because it gives you so much freedom. People think, oh, a nun, you have no freedom. You can't drink, you can't dope, you can't smoke, you can't go to movies, you can't sing, you can't dance, you can't make out with your boyfriend, you can't sneak out and do all these things. You can't. How can you stand being a nun? Okay? If there's certain things you want to do, then being a nun or a monk sounds like prison. But for me, it was liberating. It was like, oh, now I can do what I want. Yeah? I don't have to fit into society's mold with everybody breathing down their back, telling me their opinion's what I should be. I am free to cultivate the Buddha's teachings in my heart and transform my mind and try and become the kind of person I want to become. And I couldn't do that in a regular lifestyle because I had too much attachment. Huh? Yeah.
Okay. So maybe this is about to get a little personal. But more recently, the theme of communication has been coming up.
Mm-hmm.
And wanting to be very honest with other people and have that reciprocal relationship. So when other people are not doing it very well, very easy to look at the other person and say, hey, it's okay if you don't want to, like, I don't know, if you don't want to hang out or if you don't want to speak, I just need you to tell me that. It's very easy. However, on the other end, so for example, someone whose company I don't particularly enjoy approached me and was interested in hanging out. And I wanted to express myself honestly, but I didn't want to say, hey, I don't like you. I don't think we should hang out.
Yeah.
And I was wondering if you had any insight or advice as a being.
Okay. Yeah, you definitely don't want to say that to somebody. Okay, that's really not so cool. Okay. Nagarjuna in Precious Garland, he has a very interesting understanding of telling the truth. Telling the truth has to come from a good motivation. If the motivation is to inflict harm or somehow selfish, even if what we say is true literally, he doesn't consider that the truth. Yeah. So in those situations, there's a couple of things you could do. One is just be very polite and find a way to exit. Another way is to give yourself the assignment to talk to people that you don't usually talk to, that your instant reaction is dislike, and say, you know, I'm going to find a topic of mutual interest that I can have a good discussion with this person about, even if it takes me a while. But it's very interesting. I did this one time when my teacher had a big 3-month thing with like lots of people, lots of monks and nuns there. And I told myself I was going to talk to everybody and have a good discussion with everyone. You know, whether I like them or not. Because you can learn a lot from people that disagree with you. And just asking people about their lives and their backgrounds and their experiences and why they think what they think. They may have experiences you never dream of. They may have conclusions from things that you hate. But it is so educational. And you learn so much from talking to those people and listening and not arguing, but letting them educate you about how other people think. Yeah? Okay, in the back? Yeah. So we're going to have to end soon, I think, yeah.
Can I talk? So for those of us who are not free as nuns, I was wondering about if you could tell us a little bit about freedom and self-compassion, or lack of freedom and self-compassion.
Okay. Freedom and self-compassion.
Yeah. Or for those of us who are not free, how do we practice self-compassion?
Free
as in, as a nun. When you said you can do whatever you want, practice Buddha and...
Yeah, well, but you see, what I want is, it's not whatever I want. I have 348 precepts. Okay? And that's just one set of vows. If you have the bodhisattva vows, and, there's more. So it's not I can do everything. When I say everything I want, it means it doesn't mean I can do everything. It means I have changed what I want, and even though I can't be what I want all the time, I have the freedom to try and train my mind and practice so that I can become like that. Yeah? So everybody actually has that freedom. It's just we have to realize we have it and use it. Most of us are trying to be what we think other people think we should be. Yeah? Yeah, and it's our own mind that isn't free. Yeah, it's not other people because other people put guilt trips on us. It's because we buy into the guilt trips. Okay? So that is internal work that we have to do ourselves. And I spent a lot of time, because I had a lot of guilt, I was raised in a guilty culture, okay? No, seriously, I led one retreat, and we divided up into Catholics, Protestants, and Jews. And we talked about guilt. And then who had the most guilt? Okay, you see, nobody's saying Protestants. And in this group, too, Protestants forget it, So it was a rivalry between the Jews and the Catholics. Yeah? So I grew up Jewish. I know that we have more guilt than the Catholics. But my Catholic friends say just the opposite, the ones that grew up Catholic. Anyway, maybe they're tied. I'm not sure. Okay? But I spent a lot of time thinking, what is my responsibility and what is other people's responsibility? Because when you feel guilt, you take responsibility for other people's feelings. Like what they feel is my responsibility. But we cannot control what they feel. Okay? My actions are my responsibility. How other people interpret my actions is their responsibility. Because I can have a rotten motivation and somebody can think I'm being kind and like me. We know how to do that, don't we? We know how to pull the wool over people's eyes. And sometimes I can have a good motivation and somebody completely misunderstands, or I push their buttons and they get really upset by what I say. So I can't really control what people feel. That doesn't mean I become insensitive, but it means I take responsibility for my actions. And if I have a harmful intent, I have to acknowledge that and change that. Even if I know with my manipulative mind, I can convince people to think well of me. I still have to change that because that's not being true to myself. Yeah. Similarly, if I think I'm responsible for everybody else's feelings and I feel guilty, I should be able to make my mother happy and my father happy and this person, that person. And you know what? Whatever you do, you're never going to make everybody happy with you. Yeah, it is impossible to make anybody totally happy with us. You could do 17,000 backflips, and they'll still find something to complain about. Yeah? So our thing, I think, is to have a very firm, solid sense of our own ethics. You know, learn Buddhist ethics, really think about those things, cultivate an attitude of non-harmfulness, and as much as possible live according to that. And we can't control whether other people like us or don't like us. Yeah, we can't. Anyway, even if everybody likes us, does that mean we're a good person? And if everybody hates us, does that mean we're a bad person? No. We have to learn how to evaluate ourselves. Yeah, and monitor our own motivations, our own mind. Okay? So you have the freedom to do that. Oh, yeah, you had. No, the lady here. This, her.
I know you've been waiting.
You've been waiting.
Oh, okay. So two more questions and then we'll stop. Okay.
I think you just answered my question.
Oh,
but
okay.
a lot of what you were saying when you were speaking resonated with me, that I felt like you were talking directly to me about some issues. And I was thinking more of, you know, I agree, be the change that you want to see, but how do you lead that change for others? Or how do you, if someone is angry at you, how do you I can let that go, but how do you mend it?
Okay.
I guess is the word.
Okay. Some things we can mend, some things, because we can't change anybody else's mind. Yeah, we can't make somebody else change their mind. So if we did something harmful to someone, we can apologize. That doesn't mean that they'll accept our apology or whatever, but that's not important. The important thing is that we forgive ourselves and we make the apology. What they do with the apology is their business. Hopefully it will help them. If it doesn't, what can we do? We can just wish them well, keep the door open, and maybe sometime something will happen and they'll be able to let go.
Hi. So I think probably in a similar vein to the last couple of questions, I think sometimes it's much harder to have compassion for yourself than other people. And we can, and it made a lot of sense and resonated with me when you talked about how really that actually is kind of self-centered when we hold on to this guilt and blame and all those things. So I was like, yes, all right, that's wonderful. Now, how do I stop it? Like, I think that's like a bigger question, but I also think like in that moment when you're just starting to spiral and feed your own ego, how do you interrupt that to be able to get a little clarity?
Okay. So remember what I said at the beginning, that just noticing something is a big step? So here it's like, oh, look, I'm running the tape of what a lousy person I am. I'm running my self-critical, I'm a failure, good-for-nothing tape. Because that's what it is, isn't it? We say the same thing to ourselves over and over and over again. Yeah. In America, we specialize this. Really? I think, my theory is that this self-loathing is one of the biggest hindrances to Dharma practice among people in the West, especially in the U.S. Yeah? Because we get so wrapped up in self-loathing and low self-esteem. So first, you notice it. Then you stop. And then it's very interesting. You listen to the thought, to what you're saying to yourself. And sometimes you even write it down. You know, what do we say to ourselves? I blew it. Okay? I totally blew it. I lost the opportunity. I was too stupid to see what I could do, and I did something really dumb. No wonder I'm a failure. That sound familiar? Okay, so then you look at that statement, yeah? I'm a failure. Is that true? Is that true, that you're a failure? When you look at yourself, you know, I'm a failure. Everything about me is a failure. Excuse me, I can make toast. I can make a cup of tea. Yeah? I can do lots of things. If I say to myself I'm a failure, is that true? No, it's one big fat lie. Maybe I made a mistake, but that doesn't mean that as a person, I fail in all aspects of my life. You know, that is total hogwash. So a lot of this stuff, the self-talk we have, if we stop and just write it down and ask ourselves, is this true? We'll see that it's not true at all. That it's exaggerated statements. Yeah. Another one of our big ones, nobody loves me. I'm unlovable. Something's wrong with me, and nobody loves me the way I want and need to be loved. Yeah. I am inherently unlovable. Yeah? And you stop and you say, is that true? That I'm unlovable? Is it true that nobody loves me? Nobody in this universe loves me. Is that true? Yeah. That, again, is a bunch of BS. Excuse my French. It's not true. We all have people who love us. They may not love us in the way we want them to. They may not show their love in the way we want them to. But they love us. If we could open our eyes and our hearts and see and accept the kindness and affection from others, all of us would see that other people do love us and care about us. And we're blocking it out. And we're saying, if you really loved me, then you would fly to the moon. No. Yeah? Somebody doesn't have to act in a certain way to love us. Love is just a feeling. And even if you don't have ordinary human beings who love you, think about the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas. Yeah, they care about us. In fact, it said that they care about us more than we care about ourselves. Yeah. Of course we're not totally unlovable. That's just the extremist mind making up a bunch of stuff. Okay? So that's how you start to dissect it. Yeah? You look at what you're saying to yourself and really question, is that true? Not true.
Can I have a quick comment?
Sure.
It's okay. I can hear my voice. So one of the things that, I am personally someone who has dealt with depression for 6 years. I'm still currently dealing with it.
Mm-hmm.
And this is going to get personal, but I spent 3 months in 4 different hospitals.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the things you learn about, and it goes towards, kind of how to dissect it, is when you look at a thought, when you start to say, is this true? People categorize thoughts as good or bad.
Mm-hmm.
But thoughts that they categorize as good aren't necessarily good. An example being that you could have a surgeon say, wow, I'm the best surgeon in the world. I bet I could do an operation while drunk. That's a positive thought, but it's not good.
Mm-hmm.
So that's when you have to take the thought and you look at it and say, where is this going to get me? Is this going to get me in the direction needed to move on forward?
Yeah.
And that's when you have to dissect your thoughts.
Yeah.
more than is this bad or is this good.
Mm-hmm.
And that's just what I wanted to add on to say to her, because it is, like what you were saying, we have all or nothing thinking.
Yeah.
And
very black and
I
white
bet,
thinking.
Yeah, exactly. And I bet a lot of people could relate to that. And there's a whole list of things that I got a handout on, actually, in my opinion, that tells you, what in your mind are the negatives that you do. And you basically check off and you say, wow, I do exaggerate things. Like, oh my God, everybody hates me. I do think I'm a failure just because I failed one test. And again, it all goes back to, is this thought helping me?
Mm-hmm.
So that's just something that people could keep in mind.
Yeah. Thank you.